Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Rockin Rooster, and I'm going to be sipping on some pomegranate tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, fluorescent green, fluorescent pink, deep yellow, burnt umber, which I will refer to as brown, fire red, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a 9-inch paper plate that we'll use for drawing a circle, and then I have a standard number 2 pencil that we'll use for some drawing, and 2 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, and I have a number 5 round synthetic brush. I will refer to these as small and large as we go through the painting process, and of course you can switch those up if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint. Even the fancy paper plate will be in the kit. So that's down there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing a basic outline for our adorable rooster and his t-shirt. So I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to use my paper plate. So I'm going to be starting the whole drawing with a simple circle for the head, and then we're just going to be drawing some basic shapes around it that we'll be utilizing for coloring in purposes when we go to paint. So I'm going to take my paper plate and I'm going to kind of find the center of my canvas. It doesn't have to be perfect, but somewhere in this vicinity will work. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over to the left a little bit and up a little bit. So I've got mine off center just a little bit, and then I'm just going to draw myself a little bit, not a little bit, I'm going to draw myself a whole bit of a circle around my paper plate. So that's going to get me started. Then, you know, you can get rid of your paper plate wherever you'd like to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the shoulders of my rooster. So I'm going to have it looking like it's wearing a t-shirt. I don't know if roosters actually have shoulders, but we're going to make something look like he's wearing a regular t-shirt. So I'm going to, if this is about the center part of my circle down at the bottom, I'm going to go to the left of this, maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches or so, make myself a little bit of a marker. And then on the right hand side, if this is the bottom of my circle, I'm going to go to the right about 3 inches. So I've got it a little bit further off to the right than the left. On the left hand side, I'm going to, I'll give you a marker down at the bottom here. So I'm going to come up from the bottom left hand side about 1.5 inches and then in about 1/2 inch. This is going to be the corner of my sleeve. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to give myself this curved line, which will represent the shoulder of my rooster. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line. It doesn't have to be straight, maybe about 3 inches wide, and then I'm just going to come straight down to the bottom of my canvas. And then I'll do something similar on the other side, but I don't want it to look exactly the same. So on the right hand side, I'm just going to come up maybe about 1.5 inches and in maybe about 1 inch somewhere in here. So it's a little bit lower and a little bit farther away from the edge. And then I'm just going to connect these with another kind of curved line which will indicate that that's my rooster shoulder. And then I'm going to come horizontally in here, maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches, and then just bring it down. So that's just going to give us a basic outline. We're going to put little wings coming out of the edges of that as well, but we don't need to draw those in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some basic shapes for my facial details and to get my face to be separated from the big, huge feathers that we're going to be putting on the head. So I'm going to find myself about the center part of my circle at the bottom, and I'm going to come up from this. I would say maybe about an inch or so, inch and a half. This is going to represent the bottom part of the beak, and then I'm going to go straight up from that, about halfway up the circle, so somewhere in this vicinity. That'll take me to the top of the beak, and then I'm going to connect these with a long kind of oval shape that's a little bit wider at the top and more narrow at the bottom. So I'm going to take this and then just bring it down in through here, and then just give myself a little tip at the end, and then just bring it around this top in through here. So it's a little bit wider in through here than it is at the bottom. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It can be crooked. That's the joy of this. We might be looking at it from a little bit of an angle. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 areas for my eyes. So I'm going to come down from here about 1/2 inch, and then over to the right about another 1/2 inch or so, something like that. So down from here about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and then over past the beak out in this vicinity. My eyes are maybe just about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch wide and tall, so it doesn't have to be anything perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself the little curves that are going to be at the top of the eye. So I'm going to take this from the outside part of my circle and just give myself a little bit of a curve that's going to meet the beak portion in through there. Then I'm going to make myself these big, like long, wobbly type of shapes. I'm not a rooster professional, so I do not know all the exact parts on this. So whatever the skin part is on the side of the beak, that's what we're going to be drawing shapes for right now. So I'm going to go from a little bit inside my eye in through here, so you can just mark it in through there, and I'm going to bring this just kind of long, oblong type of shape. I'm bringing it past the circle on there, and then I'm going to bring it up just a little bit inside the height of the beak. So I'll do the same thing for the other one, and I'm going to make the other one maybe a little bit longer, so you can have them uneven from one another, and then just bring it up towards that beak a little bit. And then there's some other parts on the face that are going to need some additional information. So we're just going to put a little section in through here on the outside of that wobbly piece, and another one over here. So that's all I'm going to do. I don't need to do anything else. We're going to be just coloring these in with, you know what, actually, maybe let's give another little outline in through here. So this will separate these 2 sections up in the top. So another little section like that. And then we are going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So you can just put your pencil down, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our sky and our t-shirt. We'll be putting the decorations on our t-shirt later, but right now we're just going to do the main coat of it. I'm going to use my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are blue, green, white, and black. And what I'm going to first do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a color that's going to bring us right back into the middle of the 80s, which is teal. So I'm going to be using my green, blue, and white to create this beautiful teal color that totally brings me back into like 1982, circa 1982. So how I'm going to get to that is I'm going to mix some of my blue with my green, which is going to give me a nice dark teal type of a color, and then I can add a little bit of white into it and get it to go as light or as dark as I want it. Whatever is visually appealing to you is totally fine. And then once you've reached your perfect shade of teal that is speaking to you, maybe you want yours to be, you know, bright pink or whatever works for you, but I'm going to go for this nice light teal color. So once you've got it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be painting the background around the head with this color. You can do a solid coat if you want. You could do a gradient. I might use a little bit of white as I get down towards the bottom of this area, so maybe it gives the representation that this rooster is outside or something along that line. But I'm just going to go kind of messily near my circle. I don't need to make that a clean entry because you're going to have lots of those head feathers that are going to be covering that area. So you don't need that to be perfect at all. Just getting that color up close to your circle mark is fine. But when you come down towards the shoulder, you'll want to get that color right up to your pencil mark. So that way the t-shirt, when we put the t-shirt on there, it will look like you painted the whole thing. And I might put a little bit of lightness down here at the bottom in a minute. I'm just gonna go ahead and paint the other side with this color. I am also gonna put a little bit down where this, where the wing feather is gonna be, just so if I don't have the feathers fully, the feathers can be separate looking, so if there's any little peekaboo spots between the feathers, you'll be able to see this blue or teal behind it. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. If you're going to go for a solid coat of this color, you don't really need to be specific with your brush stroke direction, but if you are going to be doing a gradient or something along that line, you'll want to just keep that brush stroke kind of consistent through the whole thing, so it helps you to build that gradient the way that you want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and come down in through this area. Again, doesn't matter once I get to that circle, but when I get near that t-shirt, you'll want to go right up to the edge of your pencil mark. You can even overlap your t-shirt a little bit, because we're going to be doing that with a really dark color that will overpower your pencil. So if you want to make sure that you've got all the way up to that t-shirt, you can overlap that pencil mark a little bit. And then I'm going to again go right down to this bottom in through here. And this is the point, if you wanted to add a little bit of lightness down to the bottom, I'm not going to wash my brush, just pick up a little bit of white paint and with your dirty brush, and that'll add a bit of lightness down towards the bottom. Not necessary, but if you did want to give it any kind of little bit of a gradient, you could certainly do that. And then I'm going to just wash my brush in preparation to get the coat on the t-shirt. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm just going to be painting it with black paint. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm loading my brush with black paint. I'm going to go a little bit slower around the edges on this. When I get to this part in between these skin pieces, I'm going to just kind of bring that black right up in between them. You don't have to go all the way up, just something that will give it an entry into that dark area into the area that's underneath the beak. And same thing with in through here. I'm just kind of giving myself a messy line as it kind of enters into the face. Over on this left side, mine kind of meets right at the corner with my rooster piece, the facial piece in through here. So just kind of scooting my brush up in through that corner. And if you're going through this process and your body of your bird grows a little bit because you need to get that black paint all the way out to the to cover up any unpainted areas around your background, then so be it. But you'll want to make sure that you have kind of a nice clean line. It is meant to represent a t-shirt, so your edges don't have to be straight. They can certainly have a little bit of wobble in them because it is cloth. So like if I go down here and I'm doing the edge of the t-shirt, it's okay if it kind of wobbles a little bit. Down here I'm going to have the feathers of the bird, so I certainly don't need that to be perfect. And then I'm just kind of bringing this in through here. I'm bringing it all the way down to the bottom of my canvas. We're going to add a couple of little strategic highlights in a second that will identify the arms separate from like the chest area. So I'm just getting this black paint in through here, making sure I go all the way to the edges of my pencil mark. The black will overpower that teal color, so if you have a little bit of wet paint that you're going through, just paint right through it. It's all right. And then I'm just going to bring this all the way down to the bottom of my sleeve and make sure that I've got it all the way over here to this little corner. And if you needed to use a smaller brush to get over to that corner, it's fine. And this little white area that shows there is okay because that's where my feathers are going to go. And I'm just bringing this all the way down to the bottom, making sure I have a nice coat throughout the shirt. And now that I've got my shirt on here, without washing my brush, my black paint is still a little bit wet, which is going to help me to put these little highlights, strategic highlights on it. I'm going to put a couple little highlights on the shoulders, on the edge of the sleeve, and then on the chest area, which will make it look like it's a little bit more three-dimensional. So I'm not going to wash my brush. I just put a teeny bit of white paint on my dirty brush, and then I'm going to just kind of come down the top edge of my sleeve, like where the shoulder would be. And that's going to tell the viewer that it pops out a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of form. I'm also going to do the same thing down here on the little cuff of the sleeve. You can go ahead and do the same thing over on the right hand side. And if you feel that your paint is a little bit, your black is a little bit too wet and this isn't working for you, you could certainly just wait for it to dry a minute and then go ahead and do a little maybe gray on those shoulders or whatever. And then I'm going to do the same thing where I want the chest to go. So from these right hand sides of the shirt and through here, I'm just going to bring this up just a little bit, this line up just a little bit, and then just get this to blend into what would be the chest area. And you don't need to do much, just a little insinuation of it being lighter around those edges, and the sleeves is totally fine. If you felt you wanted one around the neck, you could certainly do that too, but that's going to be most likely hidden with a whole lot of detail from the bird's feathers and stuff. And then we are going to be utilizing the small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the first layer of our facial details. So I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, yellow, white, and red. And we're going to just basically paint each of these sections in their own specific color, and we're also going to do a little bit of a outline or shadowy area along the exterior of the face so it can work its way into all them big feathers. So I'm going to make myself a custom tan color for some of these sections. So I've already pre-mixed it so you can kind of see where I'm headed in through here. So how I got to that was I utilized yellow, brown, and a little bit of white. So I'm really just going, I need a little more brown than that. I'm really just going for like a light tan look to it, but I wanted a little bit of that yellow in there so it would not be such a muted color. The yellow helps to make it a little bit more of a richer type of a tan as opposed to a soft muted kind of a color. So that's looking pretty good to me. So once I have that color, I'm going to be utilizing that for a couple of these sections. So I'm going to just paint in this section around the eye with this tan color in through here. And I'm also going to be doing these little exterior areas. So I've got my pencil that I can see through my paint because my paint is a little bit more on the translucent side. I'm going to want to keep some of these little areas where I can see them. So if your skin area in through here kind of travels up in, alongside this section, you can leave a little bit of that pencil or a little gap between those sections, just so during the painting process you don't get confused as to which section is which. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing on the left hand side. So I'm just utilizing that tan. This does not have to be a perfect coat at this point because we're going to be doing a lot of other information along the these sections. So this is what I was talking about in through here. So I've got these two sections of the same color that are meeting each other. So you could either just leave a little gap in between the two, or if you can still see your pencil underneath your paint, that's fine. You'll be able to use that as a marker. But I'm just going to leave a little gap where I need to so I don't get myself confused. I'm also going to paint this beak. I'm going to paint the whole thing with this beige or tan type of a color, but where it meets the these sections on the right, again, I'm going to leave myself just a little bit of a space so I don't get confused. So that's good in through there, and then just bringing it down all the way down to the tip. The next color that I'm going to be doing is red. So after I get this section done, I'm going to wash and dry my small brush, and I'm going to color in these two sections here with red paint. My red is going to be translucent, so I will see these two pencil marks through it. If you feel that you're going to struggle with that, you can certainly just erase these two lines. We are going to be doing many steps on top of here, so if your lines show through, like I didn't erase mine all the way just so you can see what's going to happen. If your lines show through like mine do, don't worry about that, because we've got highlights and shadows, and we're going to be putting texture and all kinds of stuff on these sections in a later step, which will hide that pencil mark. So again, if your pencil's showing through, don't worry about it. And going along these edges, if you cross over into the tan color, that's great. If you leave gaps, that's fine too. We'll be able to rectify anything on a future step. So I'm just really looking to get myself a base coat that we'll be able to paint in with a future step. And then once I get this this section done, I am going to put a little bit of this red in a couple of additional spots that are not necessarily designated as their own section, but I do want to incorporate some of this red on this first layer in a couple of other spots. So I've got these sections done. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just picking up a little bit more red. I'm actually going to put a little bit at the top of this tan section. So if it runs into wet paint, I'm okay with that. I'm just going to overlap it just a little bit, and I'm going to bring it down in between these two sections just a little bit. So you don't have to necessarily bring it all the way down. This is just starting the process of the details for the face. This is going to help us get some of these real rich kind of colors in through there. I'm also going to put a little bit of this red up on top of the eyes, something like this. So I'm just overlapping that tan section with a little bit of red just at the tippy tops. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put some black areas in. I do want to put some black up in through here, but I'm actually going to use black plus my tan on my brush at the same time. So right in this area here, I want this to look like it's the little feathers in the shadow underneath the chin, or underneath that beak. So I have black plus a little bit of that brown on my brush. And again, I'm not terribly concerned about getting this perfect. I'm just really looking to get some information in here right where it is meeting that t-shirt. And if yours doesn't look like it's got feathers on it, that's okay. We just need something nice and dark under there anyways. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the edge of the head, but more with just black. So I'm going to first paint in my eyeballs. So I'm going to just give that a little layer of black paint for my eyeballs. One there and then one here. And once I've got the eyeballs in, I just really want to kind of almost outline that face to ensure that I have a lot of darkness around the face leading into the feathers. So I'm using black plus my tan. So I have both of those colors on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of come right up next to all of these areas with my black and my tan, and just kind of get a real dark color meeting that face. And I can also take it and just kind of like pull it out into the area, the neighboring area. So we're not, again, going for any fine detail right now, just getting myself a nice dark area that is meeting the face. So this way the face will be very evident and kind of pop out underneath all these dark feathers that we're going to be putting on the head. But I'm using the black plus a little bit of that tan color, and getting it right up close to the facial details, even around these eyes. You might find that you could leave a little space between the eye and the darkness so you don't lose the exterior part of that eye, and then just bring this darkness all the way down. We're going to be utilizing our big brush to do the feathers, so by utilizing our small brush, just getting this darkness right around the edges, that's going to help with the painting process later. So just kind of getting this darkness, and if yours is more dark than mine or lighter than mine, that all works out. And then once we've got this step done, we are going to be utilizing our large brush for the next step. So I'm just kind of making sure that I've got a lot of darkness leading right up next to my my facial features, and then just pulling it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to put this brush away, take out my large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first step to the head feathers. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm going to be using are black, white, and my pre-mixed tan color. So what I'm going to be, in essence, doing is making it a little bit darker in through here, and then we're going to go for it lighter and lighter as it goes away from the head. This is just the first layer of these feathers, so they're not going to look totally awesome by the time we're done, but this is going to be a great start to the base of these wild, crazy rooster head feathers. So it'll give it a lot of dimension by the time we're done. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of my tan and a touch of black paint on my brush at the same time. I'm going to start right here in the forehead area, and I'm going to be just bringing this up in a curved manner, kind of splaying out from that forehead. So I'm looking for kind of like a little bit of a striped effect, but you might not totally get the illusion of the dark and the light next to each other. And that's okay at this point, because we're going to be, again, doing more layers on top of this. This is just going to be the start of this. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit more of that color combination, the black and the tan, to make sure that I've got it coming out pretty far from the face itself, in a kind of like a nice transition out to where I'm going to have it get lighter and lighter. So again, this is just the black plus a little bit of the tan on my brush right now, and I'm splaying it out as if it's coming straight out from the face and then just kind of droops over like gravity is taking over. Now that I've got that area in there, I'm not going to pick up black anymore. I'm just going to pick up that tan color. So I've got tan on my brush. I'm going to give myself my exterior kind of distance that I want these feathers to go. So I've got them, they're definitely going to cross over this my circle area, and they can be as wild as you want. You can have these looking as tame as you want or as wild as you want. It's totally up to you. So I'm just kind of bringing mine out in this just circular type of way, where I'm just kind of coming out from the center of the head and just bringing it out as if it's I don't know, just all fluffed out, I guess. And you can bring it way down, even cross over that shirt if you want to in a couple of areas. It doesn't have to be a solid color, so you can, you know, just have fun with it. Now I'm going to pick up white on my brush. Without washing my brush, I picked up some white, and this I'm going to just kind of intermingle, making sure I've got the majority of the circle that we created. I want that pretty much covered at this point, so I don't have any problems with it later showing through. So I'm using the white on my brush right now to just kind of give me some the start of some bright pieces up on the exterior, and also help me to make sure that I've covered up this transition from the circle into the feathers. I'm not bringing the white all the way to the face. This is something that I'm using a little bit more towards the exterior feathers as opposed to the interior feathers, and just have fun with this. It does not have to look exactly like mine. It can look like an imaginary rooster if you wanted to. These roosters have all different kinds of colors and different ways that their feathers work, so just have fun with it. And then we're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put the big brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing the base coat for our words on the t-shirt and the arm feathers. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are white and tan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing the base coat for my arm feathers with the tan color, and then the base coat for the letters with white. The reason why I'm going to be doing the letters in white is because I want my colors to be very vibrant and neon and fluorescent like they were in the 80s, like the popular ones were in the 80s. So in order for that to happen, I need to have a white base underneath my colors so they really shine and stand out. So I'm going to first do my arms here. I'm using my small brush so I can get, and tan is the color that I'm using. I want to get it right up to my t-shirt like it's underneath the t-shirt, so I'm just using my small brush so I have a little bit more control, and I'm just going to be using my tan color so I can mimic the colors that are up above in the head. And then I'm just going to bring this down in a kind of chaotic type of manner. We're going to have the little feathered highlights on it later, so this is just giving us that base coat, bringing it right up to, you could even bring some in, you know, in front of the shirt if you wanted it to look like they were very fluffy arm feathers. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over here. And you don't have to bring it all the way to the edge of the t-shirt either. You can have a little bit, the t-shirt pop out a little bit more than the arm itself, and that'll make it look like the t-shirt has a little bit of volume to it. And then I'm just bringing this color down like this and maybe flicking out a couple of pieces along the edge to look like they're little feathers. This is just a tiny little detail that'll bring it all together. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to freestyle my words I and then the shape of a heart, the 80s. You could certainly pencil yours in or chalk them in or make them a little bit more organized than mine. But in my head I'm thinking the body is round here, so the letters would be a little warped, so I'm just going to kind of freestyle it here. So I'm going to go for the letter I, and you could of course make yours into whatever type of style that you want. This does not have to be a perfectly executed layer of paint. I just want to get the letters and stuff in the shape that I want with a nice thin layer of white, so the color that I choose to do on top of it will really pop out. And then I'm going to do my heart like this, and then of course just color it in with my white paint. And again, if you wanted to plan yours out, you certainly could do that. I think I'm going to put a little pointier tail on my heart so it really, you know, gives you the whole distinct shape of it. And then I'm going to write the word the. Just get myself in a, oops, just need the camera, sorry. I'm going to write the word the. I'm going to make these letters a little bit bigger in a minute, but I just want to get it on here. The, and then I'll put the 8. And of course you could do yours again, whatever way is fun to you. My little apostrophe and then my S. And then once I've got them on there, I just sit here with a little bit of white paint and just get them as full as I want and as clean as I want. So that cleaning them up after you get them on there might take you a minute just to make sure that you have that white as thick as you want and have those lines as clean as you want. But once you've got them done, we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. And again, just have fun with this message. It doesn't have to be perfectly executed. It could say something else if you wanted it to. Maybe you don't want your rooster to have a saying on his shirt or whatever. Maybe you want yours to say, I love MTV, because I think MTV came out in the 80s as well. So you can certainly have yours do and say whatever it is that you would like. And then once you've got this done, we're going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our beak and our eyes and maybe this little skin part at the top too. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, white, yellow, red, and maybe some brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my eyes first. So what I'm really going to do for my eyes, I just want to give them a little bit of shape underneath and then maybe a tiny bit of a reflection in them, and then just do a little bit more detail along the side. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black and brown on my brush, and I'm going to give a little bit of a shadowy type of area underneath what I'll call like the eye socket, somewhere in through here. And then I'm just going to kind of rub it out and into that light tan color with just a little tapping type of motion to give myself a little bit of a textural type of look in through here, maybe a little bit of this darkness in through here, and then do the same thing on the other side. So I have black and brown on my brush right now, the dark brown, not the tan. And I'm just giving myself this little bit of a textural type of look coming down the face in through here underneath that eye socket, so something like that. And this is where, when you get to these areas where there's, you know, you've given yourself a little bit of, left that little space to, as a reminder, you can certainly now start coloring in those little areas so you can get the information all filled in. Then what I'm going to do on the eye part, I'm going to pick up some of my tan, and I'm going to give myself a little kind of, we'll call it a little twinkle in the eye, which is just going to be a little semicircle mark at the bottom of that eye. And then what I'm going to do with this tan is I'm going to finish giving myself a little bit of skin around the exterior of the eye. So just finishing up with that tan, a little bit of a skin part on the outside of the eye. So this is coloring in that unpainted area that I might have left for visual purposes to finish that section up. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white on my dirty brush. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a highlight in through here. So a little bit of white on my brush, give myself a little bit of a highlight on the inside part of this skin in through here, just to give myself a little bit more definition on those. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to do this little red skin part at the top. So I'm going to put a little bit of red and brown on my brush and just make sure that I've got this whole area colored in. You can put a little bit of the brown on there in order to get it to blend down into this darker region that you had. So just a little bit of red and brown, giving myself a second layer on there just to make sure that I have it fully executed. And then I want to tackle this little piece up in through here. So I'm going to put red, brown, and a touch of white on my brush in order to give myself a little bit of texture on this piece of skin that's up in through here. So I'm just kind of tapping it with my brush in order to give myself a little bit of a textural type of appearance to it. As it goes up into where it's going to meet the feathers, I'm wiping off my brush and I'm picking up a little bit of red and black in order to get these two areas to just kind of really talk together and make sure that they are kind of overlapping each other, so they look like they're that they belong together. So just a little bit of red and black, just kind of tapping it with my brush in order to make it look like it's kind of receding back underneath those feathers or next to the feathers, something like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with my dirty brush, I'm just going to kind of tap down these little red sections to make sure that they are fully painted and have enough texture on them. So I just had that dirty red, brown, maybe a little bit of black and white, just something to give myself this little bit of texture down these red spots down in through here. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush and work on that beak. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black and white paint. So a touch of black and white paint. I'm going to give myself like a grayish area in through here. So I'm going to, I have black and white on my brush. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a bumpy kind of line on top of the beak like this, a little curved line. And then I picked up a little bit more white, and I'm going to get this section to be like a gray, a light gray at the bottom edge of it, and as it recedes up that beak, I'm going to get it to go darker and darker. So I just have a little bit of gray because I have black and white. Now I'm wiping my brush off. I'm going to pick up some black paint, and I'm going to get it to go darker and darker as it goes up into this little crevice, meeting that red section. So at any time you can just wash and dry your brush. You just want to get these two sections to kind of blend in with one another. So I'm getting it to be darker up at the top where it's meeting the red, and lighter down where it is meeting the edge of that marked area that I created. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something pretty similar to where it meets this bottom part of the beak. So I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm picking up a tiny bit of black paint, and I'm going to do it really black and dark right underneath this area in through here. And then I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to just rub it out so it gives me this gradient on the beak, on this bottom part of the beak. I want my beak to be a little bit darker on the right hand side, so I'm going to utilize a little bit more darkness over on this right side. And I'm really at this point just kind of rubbing it in, so I'm utilizing the remnants that are on my brush, and I'm keeping that left side just a little bit lighter, but you can still add some of that that shadowy type of, or gradient type of appearance on it. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight on that beak. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to be using white and yellow to do this. So I'm going to pick up white with just a teeny tiny bit of yellow on my brush, so I hardly have any paint, and this is where I'm going to put my highlight. So I want mine to look a little curved, so I'm going to go down the center of the beak in through here. I have white plus a little bit of yellow on my brush, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve so the tip of the beak is pretty light, as well as the contour top edge of it. And then I'm going to just kind of rub this out, keeping this left side a little bit lighter. I will put a little bit of white on it in a minute, but this is just getting that part to pop out and look a little bit more three-dimensional. Now I'm going to wipe my brush off, pick up a little bit of white paint, and give myself this bright part at the end or the tip of the beak. And then once I've got this, you know, all the areas kind of identified, how bright I want them or where I want those highlights, then I would just keep fiddling. So you could, if you wanted to, you could put more red in the beak, you could put more, you know, anything in it to get it into the color that you're looking for. But I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good for me, so I'm gonna just call it on mine. I might let it dry and fiddle a little bit more, but for right now, it looks pretty good. I'm going to use this same brush for the next step, so you could just wash it, dry it, and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our rooster face. So that's going to be these skin areas in through here. I think they're called wattles, but don't quote me. Some are, I don't know. Again, not quite sure, so I don't even know why I'm trying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my small brush. I'm using black, brown, red, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some texture in these two pieces, and I'm also going to add some details to these other little skin areas over in through here. So what I'm really just looking to do is add highlights and shadows. These are like they're like some form of wrinkly type of skin, so I can have lots of little texture and dark spots and light spots, and they'll make it look a little bit more natural. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of black and red on my brush at the same, oops, I keep missing the black. So I've got black and red on my brush at the same time. I'm going to give myself these kind of like a roadmap of little circly kind of messy areas that I'm going to refer to as my shadowy areas within my within these sections of the skin. So I'm doing this one, I'm kind of doing on the inside or on the right side of it. On this one, I'll do it on the left side, so we'll consider the inside edges closer to the beak to be maybe more in the shadows, so something like this. And again, yours doesn't have to be formulated exactly as mine. If you feel that yours would look a little bit different based on whatever shape that you had created, that's fine. And I want this part to look like it's popping out the most, so maybe I'll put a little bit of the shadow on the, maybe over on this far edge as well. So again, wherever you want the skin or whatever to pop out, you'd want that to be the brightest of the areas. So maybe if I got this part to be a little bit darker, this would look like it would sink in a little bit more, maybe a little bit on the edges. If I want this to pop out and maybe along here, I'll keep those as my brighter sections. And again, this is one of those times where you'd want to pay attention to your edges to make sure that all the areas that might have been missed on the first pass when we were doing the base coat, this is the time where you'd want to just make sure that you've got them all painted in. Maybe a little bit of shadow right as it's meeting the beak, so I've got a little bit of darkness in through there. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush to put the lighter areas on. So my lighter area is just going to be wherever I want it to pop out the most. So I'm going to be using red plus a tiny bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm going to be again utilizing this almost circular type of brush stroke in order to get these light areas in here with a little bit of extra texture to make it look like they are that wrinkly type of skin on these particular pieces of the rooster. So I'm going to do the same thing in through here, putting my lighter sections up towards this top and maybe down this center kind of area. And again, all the while knowing that I kind of want it to blend in with that darker area, but not necessarily 100%, just maybe overlapping a little bit so it can have a natural kind of transition from the light area to the dark area. If I want a little piece to pop out in through here, I'd put a little bit more white paint on it, and then you just kind of fiddle with it until you've got a good coverage, you've got everything in there the way that you want. I like to kind of sometimes let it dry and see if it is drying the way that I want. Maybe step away from it, look at it from a distance to see if it is as bright as you want or popping out as much as you want. And then once you've got these two little areas done, we want to put a little bit of a highlight on these light pieces of skin over here. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And I'm going to do a similar thing to what I did on this area of the beak, which is black and white. So I want to make a little bit of a gray color on the fly in these areas. So I have white with a teeny tiny bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of lightly add in a little bit of gray color in through here. I will, and this is just kind of on top of the existing tan color, just to kind of give myself a little bit more of a color variation, so it's not all just tan. And I'm putting it a little bit lighter wherever I feel like it would pop out a little bit more, so you can really have fun with the tonal values in order to get it to look like it is receding or popping out. I do want to do something with the transition from here to here, so I just put a little bit more black on my brush just to kind of get this area to kind of transition and look like it is not just a flat piece of skin. So just a little bit of black in my tan on my brush will help me do that. And then again, I would just kind of fiddle, and maybe I put a little bit of shadow in between the red section and this gray section, but it doesn't have to be anything perfect. I was noticing when I was looking at these unusual roosters that they have a lot of different varieties with these pieces of their face and their pieces of their beaks and all that kinds of stuff. So just fiddle with it until you get it in the way that you want. And then we are going to be utilizing this small brush for the next step, so you can just wash it, dry it, and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our words. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using green, red, yellow, pink, and my pre-mixed teal color. So you can really do these in any order that you want. I'm just going to do maybe one or two of the same color. So whatever color you choose to use, I just picked up green for my first color. You can do all the letters in that color, or you can, you know, have fun with whatever your color combination is going to be. I'm going to put another green one on my 8 in through here. You might find, depending on the type of paint that you're using, that you might want to do 2 coats for each color. And if you paint into your black t-shirt a little bit, you can certainly do any little corrections that you need to on that. I'm just going to wash and dry my brush, pick up my next color. My next color I'm picking is pink, so I'm going to do a couple of letters with my pink. And again, you can, this is your, you know, creative time to explore the colors that you like, or, you know, the message that you want to write. So whatever works for you is the way that you should take it. This is, you know, one of those paintings that just is meant to have fun and, you know, bring us back to our youth or into a time when things were different than they are today. I'm picking up some yellow paint. I'm going to do my yellow letters. And then I'm going to just do 2 with this yellow. So I think I'm going to do this one and this one over here. And every time in between my colors, I'm washing and drying my brush. So I have a nice clean brush for the next color. I'm using my my teal color in through here, and maybe yours is a little bit bluer than mine, or maybe yours is a little bit greener than mine. It all is in whatever color is pleasing to your eye. And then the last one, the last color that I'm going to be doing is for my heart. So I'm choosing to do my heart with red, but you could certainly, because to me that's just where the iconic t-shirts and sweatshirts from the 80s, they just always seem to have that red heart on them, but you could certainly do yours in colors representational of the letters that you used. I remember when I was in the age of the 80s, a few years ago, we used to always go to the mall and have our custom t-shirts and sweatshirts with all of these sayings put on them, like are the favorite band that we liked, or I love Duran Duran, or whatever was hot at that moment. We would go to the mall and get a sweatshirt or a t-shirt with those words written on it. So this is very nostalgic for me, this kind of t-shirt. And then once we've got this done, we're going to be switching to our large brush for the next step. So you can just put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our feathers. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are tan, black, and white. And really what I'm doing is just I'm adding another layer. I want it to be fuller and more chaotic, and like he just went to a rock concert, because again, that's what we did in the 80s. So we're just gonna have some fun. I'm gonna do the arm feathers first. So I am going to just put a little bit of my tan and white paint on my brush at the same time. So just a little bit, because I don't have much to go on the arms, and I'm really just gonna kind of bring out some of these little arm feathers. Nothing major here, just little kind of flicks of some paint down in through here, not a whole heck of a lot. Now I'm picking up a tiny bit of black paint just to give myself a couple of little darker spots throughout those arms. I don't, again, need to do much of anything down here, just want to make sure he's got some arms underneath that cool t-shirt. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, because right now I have all 3 colors on my brush and I kind of want to be a little controlled up top. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to pick up some white paint. So I want these feathers to really look voluminous. So I just picked up a little bit of white paint, and I'm going to add some more kind of carefree type of marks throughout, maybe bring down a couple more in a little bit longer of a way on these sides, something like this. Again, we did this for our prior step, but this is going to just add another amount of volume to his beautiful, huge rooster feathered head. So again, right now, just kind of using my white, allowing for some of these to go maybe in a little bit different of a direction. They don't always have to travel in the same, curve that it did the first time, but this is just going to allow us to utilize more volume. I don't really have a whole lot of paint on my brush, so this way these pieces will dry, not necessarily on the quicker side, but they won't be too thick where it will make it too difficult for me to add more stuff to it. I'm going to pick up some of that tan now without washing my brush. So I have white and tan on my brush just to give myself, again, maybe a couple more flyaway pieces of feathers out in through here. Just again, looking to add some fun volume, maybe some go in a different direction. Whatever's visually working for you is totally fine. Now I'm going to add these wild black pieces in the middle. So I'm washing and drying my brush, and when I was looking at these roosters, they had white feathers underneath black feathers, or tan feathers underneath black feathers, and the black feathers were in front, which is why they look so wild and crazy, and I thought it would be neat to put it in this type of setting. So we've got black on my brush right now, and I'm just going to kind of go slowly with this so I don't overdo it, but allowing myself to add these wild black feathers on top of the other feathers. So you'll be able to see some of the lightness from underneath. Have fun with it. Allow it to take over. Allow it to kind of drop over on the sides and make it look like it's falling in front of the black or in front of the white feathers. Again, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, but I do want to have enough where it looks like a complete brush stroke and not just faint little lines. So when you want to add more. Make sure that I've got nice darkness in through here, like it's almost kind of coming out of the shadows in through here, and then I just kind of keep playing with it. This is definitely one of those things that I would probably step away from it and look at it from a distance to make sure that I've got as much of the darkness on here as I want. And if I wanted to add more white, I could certainly do that. If I wanted to add more tan, I could certainly do that, but I definitely think I want a couple more wild kind of black pieces coming out in through here. And you can see every now and again I kind of stick it in a different direction just so it looks like maybe there's a flyaway feather somewhere in through there. You could certainly use a little bit of water on your brush too if you wanted there to be more fluidity in your brush stroke, but I'm taking the black probably the slowest as I did with any of the colors, just so I could really control where I wanted it to go and have these really super fun pieces of the feathers just, making their appearance and making it as fun and full as I want. I think I'm actually going to put a little bit more tan right in through here so that forehead looks maybe a little bit fuller. So I just picked up tan with my black just to make sure I've got maybe some little pieces in through here to make sure we've got a little bit of volume in through there, and then just play with it as much as you want. I might end up adding a couple more pieces, but this is looking really super fun to me, so I might call it. Not quite sure yet, but once you're done with yours, we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going bottom left on this one. I think I'm going to use black and white on my brush at the same time, and I'm going to sign it in a sleeve. So I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a really fun, foul painting, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.